All right, welcome back. This is day 2 of our Sports Biz Network Virtual Summit, and I love that we're starting it off here with you, Cheri. I love what you guys are doing at Athletes Unlimited. Talk to us about what you do and what Athletes Unlimited is.
All right, well, let's start with Athletes Unlimited. It is a new professional sports company, really, that is multi-platform. So we came out of the box last August with professional softball for women. We shortly thereafter added and announced volleyball, which that season took place in March and April of 2021, earlier this year. And our third sport is prepared to launch in July. That is lacrosse. Now, right now, all of those are women's sports. We anticipate announcing a fourth very soon.
Don't want to announce it right here.
I can't. But good try. I respect that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's imagining sports in a different way. It's shorter seasons. It's all athletes in one market. It's taken team owners out of the picture and really putting players in control of the sort of, major decisions, minor decisions, all of those things along the way that come with assembling a league, and also everything that goes with that, rules, policies, who the players are, really. So every detail.
I love it. And I love AJ Andrews, we had on our podcast maybe a year and a half ago, who played last year. And that's who brought me into what the league was. And I saw her a lot last year posting about it. And so obviously we look into it and see this is really different and cool. And we like the Athletes Unlimited, the Athletes First perspective of it. What do you think now? So you did one sport, added another, third one starts. You just had the draft Tuesday, right? For lacrosse.
Yes.
And potentially adding another. What do you think's been the biggest factor of your early success with Athletes Unlimited?
I think it's refreshing. I think for fans and for the players themselves, the model, the layout, how the athletes do have a huge involvement and a big say. And then I think I'll go gender on you just for a second. I think that it's a lot of times seems to matter more to women that their experience in a space is more well-rounded, and that it feeds their psyche, not just as an athlete, but as a human being. So I would tell you that I also think that our players, our athletes themselves that have experienced it this far with softball and volleyball have really embraced the other side. And that is, there's a lot going on besides just the competition on the quarter field.
Sure. What and you mentioned the fan side and the different experience from a fan. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you guys are doing from a fan perspective and engagement and being creative around this, which I really love this part of it?
Yeah, I think that we have an agency partner that gives a lot of thought to the total experience. Now, lacrosse will be the first time that we actually have fans in the venue due to COVID, and volleyball and softball, we did not. We were reaching fans exclusively through the broadcaster stream. And but as we move forward, that's certainly the in-venue experience is also something that we prioritize. But I think, honestly, as a fan, you get the best of both worlds, because you don't have to pick this cluster of 16 or 17 or 20 players and your favorite team. You can root for all of them. You can root for all 60 softball players. And then the fun part is seeing these drafts come out each week, see who's connected with who. And you kind of, as a fan, you get to think a little deeper. Oh, how is she going to be as a catcher for her? Or I wonder, they got 2 power hitters here. I wonder how they're going to manage those 2 hitters in the same lineup or whatever. So I think there are these nuances that emerge every week that you don't get to see with a day-to-day team that's playing 120 games or something like that. It almost becomes automatic. This person's in the 3-hole, 4-hole, they're at short or second or left field. And so there's just so many aspects to it that I think are new to fans. And I don't think that fans have, at least I don't think I've seen any negative response or reaction to that. It's all been positive. So, kudos to Jonathan Soros and John Patrickhoff, who really thought the whole thing up.
Yeah, it's really interesting and different. I like that. What do you think? So we're starting lacrosse here. What are some things you've learned from the first two sports that you'd adjust for this lacrosse thing? And more from a logistics standpoint, obviously the sports are different, but from a biz standpoint, what are some things you've learned and you'll adjust for this start of the lacrosse season?
Well, I think that we all know going into this, the biggest thing is that now we have fans in the venue. And so, there's a lot that goes with that, not just logistically of letting people in and making sure you're following the proper health and safety guidelines, but also just how do we entertain them? How do we make sure this is an amazing experience for them? Everything from, their ticket purchase to, post-game autographs. So I think that, and then, I think honestly, there are a lot of people involved in this process and decision-making. And I think that things are thought through very well on the front side. A lot of holes. We try to make sure that we, poke holes in the theories and things on the front side, so we don't have to live with that. So nothing stands out for me. And I know that's probably not a perfect answer, but I think in broadcasting, we always, and streaming, we always want to continue to enhance that experience and make it very fan friendly and also unique. And I think that every venue is different. So even though we go into one venue for an entire season, those venues are different. I saw this the other day from one of our designers, they put the softball stadium and the volleyball arena next to each other. And the branding was amazing. It's just visually pleasing, I would say that, no matter how big or small your screen is. But I think those, that's a challenge because the bar is set high. So I think our design team knows that, and but it's a totally different venue to go out and accomplish one more time.
Yeah, well, and I think I guess that's a good thing, right? There's not a ton of things you'd shift and adjust logistically from the sports, and there'll be new challenges like there is with anything in life, but especially when you're dealing with sports leagues. As far as from an athlete perspective, I know the athletes have way more power than they would in the NBA, NFL, MLB, name the league. Can you talk to us about a little bit about why that was the genesis? Like when you started Athletes Unlimited, this is what we want to do and how we want to do it. And then what are some different factors that athletes have their hands on when it comes to the league?
Well, I think, so the structure itself puts what's called a player executive committee at the top of every league. So that's a panel of 4 players. It's required that they're active players. 5 players, and it's required that they're active players. So that is the player executive committee, or the PEC. That concept really came even when John Patrickhoff first started talking to me about this. That was already there. So that was part of the original idea that he and Jonathan Soros put together, was these players have a voice. They're intelligent, it's their product. So why not put them in a position to have a lot of say of what's going on out there? So that was a tentpole way before me. And I think that it's been embraced by the player executive committees. We've had some outstanding women, I think, across all the sports that have really embraced the responsibility that comes with those committees and been thoughtful in their decision making, and really tried to stay objective throughout the process. Because remember, they also are the ones a lot of times who are identifying the rest of the roster and making some really tough decisions of who gets those spots. So I think when you say how did it start, that's it. How is it going? It's going well. I think even the larger player bodies the players that aren't on the player executive committees still feel like they're heard. They have a strong say in things. And so I think it's going well.
Yeah, and that's just obviously different than these other mainstay sports leagues where it's ownership and there's some power things shifting at times. But what do you think would be some realistic type implementations some of these other well-established leagues like the MLB, NFL, NBA could do to shift to more of a model-ish? Now, no, I say realistic because yeah, we love to do this stuff, but when you got billionaires telling millionaires what to do, it's a little bit different in that world. There's lots of things that probably would benefit the leagues if they just did them, but they won't. But what are some realistic things you think they might be able to shift and adjust?
Well, I think just the establishment of a player group that is assembled for the purposes of that. Not in an adversarial way, not to dig in and always, have a beef, but to be part of the team, part of contributing. But listen, I will tell you, I was in that other space for a long time as commissioner of the National Pro Fast Pitch League, that top-down structure. And I will tell you that you hit it for a second there about, all the people that are involved. Don't kid yourself. Some of the owners are in it for the power. Sure, that's what they want. So it's, we can sit here and talk about good ideas, and you can put it forth from Athletes Unlimited that look at the success and look at, the sentiment and the feeling and the appreciation from fans to players to everybody. But there's some of those folks that are in professional sports, and I experienced some myself, that are not going to let go of the reins. They just
sure. And that's why I said realistically implement some things, because when again we're talking, especially in those mainstay sports, is like we're talking billionaires that have always been in control of everything, and to give up a smidge of power is a very tough thing to have happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Do you work with athletes, and this is more my world here, is do you work with athletes specifically on their brand building? Do you have workshops for them? Like, here's what you can do. Because we know this too is when your athlete has more eyeballs on their Instagram or their TikTok or their name the social media platform and their own brand building opportunities, it's going to bring more eyeballs to the league. Do you guys do anything specifically around that? Whether it is, like I mentioned, workshops or sit downs or some sort of guidance from that perspective?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little earlier our agency partner, and that to me, as a former female athlete, and then from somebody who I would think put myself in a position of advocating for the advancement of women's professional sports for a long time. That's one of the aspects of Athletes Unlimited that I appreciate the most, and it's the depth and the breadth of the organization. So from a public relations standpoint, from an agency partnership, our sponsors are what's called an Athletes Plus program. So when our players go into market, they're exposed to so much other stuff, just advisement on financial services, or as you mentioned, brand building, big part of it, leadership skills. So we do seminars and exercises to engage the athletes and to expose them to some of the leaders in the world, in the country, in the sports world in particular at times. That hopefully are going to help them advance themselves as humans and as people, and as people seeking careers beyond their professional sport. So yeah, I think again, that's a priority. And when the primary organization is bringing on amazing people to help with that and telling them, hey, this is where we are. We're about them. We're about developing and making sure that we are preparing them and having a positive impact on them during their time here as much as possible. That goes a long way. So if from an athlete standpoint, it's a win all the way around.
Sure, and time there, but that all translates to the next 40 years of their business careers, whether, you're not going to play softball or volleyball for another 40 years competitively, but you can learn some things, whether it's brand building or some of that financial stuff or starting businesses based on through your passion through the sport is where you can drive all this other stuff. So I love that. I think more leagues should definitely implement some of those things. And I know some do, and they'll have speakers come in and out. A lot of times that goes in one ear and out the other from an athlete perspective. But I think it's super, super valuable to be able to do some of that stuff.
Well, and the sentiment matters, right? I mean, when you feel that the sentiment is true and deep and consistent, and I mean, we're telling our partners, we're encouraging our partners to get involved in this way with our athletes and to have a deeper relationship with them, even beyond something like just having somebody be a spokesperson or an ambassador. So I think when you feel that and see it and experience it, I think you appreciate it all the way around.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think's been the biggest challenge so far in the year and a half ish of leagues starting?
I think it's I think a lot of people would say COVID, and I tip my hat every single day, and I've said it and I'll continue to say it. We have some amazing people on our staff, and we had a lot of people that it started with our founders, with Jonathan Soros and John Patricoff, not blinking when COVID came on, and listen, they weren't surprised by it. They were tracking it from point one before everybody else was really on it. We knew it was a thing. I think they started it, that just thoughtful planning. We had people within the organization, our director of operations, Anna Drucker, who oversaw a whole process of consulting with Johns Hopkins and others of how do we do this? How do we implement our testing? So think about that. Think about a new league trying to launch right in the middle when everyone else is shutting down. Right. So a lot of people would say that was the challenge. Yes, it was, but it was very manageable. I would tell you the biggest challenge that was and is and remains is that we are in the women's professional sports space. And that means that a lot of times networks, partners, no one is sitting on the sidelines waiting to immediately embrace you and help you build this product. What can we do to help you elevate this? In the women's professional sports space, you often have to prove yourself over and over and over again. Yeah. So I think that's the challenge. Now, the conversation has elevated in that space. The awareness has elevated. I wouldn't tell you that the actions in any way, shape, or form have proportionately elevated from a partnership and a broadcast platform aspect. Yeah.
What do you think about? So I saw the what was it? The Oklahoma Florida State game peaked at 2.2 million. It's softball game the other day. Peaked at 2.2 million viewers. And we're talking college softball, a little bit different, but what do you think numbers like that can do to potentially shift some of the actions, or does it not? I mean, brands are going to pay, the media companies are going to pay and set things up based on, if they get those eyeballs, sometimes they'll fight that concept. But when they get the eyeballs, it's pretty undeniable to say 2.2 million people are tuning in to watch this one game. And I'm sure they had millions across platforms. But do you think that something like that shifts mentality behind any of this, and obviously all the other things going on in the world with this too?
Well, I'm going to give you the perfect example that supports what you said and supports what I said. So that rating, amazing. The other thing is that's a 35% year over year increase. So the championship did not take place last year. So when you go 2021 versus 2019, first of all, it's a record setter rate, and second of all, it's up 35%. Think about that. That's staggering. For that, what did we get? The finals is today. Guess when it is?
3 p.m.
3 p.m. Eastern time. Pacific time, noon. Yeah. So for all that, for an amazing 35% increase, and what I just said was, from a network standpoint and a partnership standpoint, the actions still aren't there. Yeah. If it's something else, it gets figured out. So that's where I think we still have the mountain to climb in a way. But you asked, what does that say? That says that even with, I would also tell you that there's still just a moderate promotion going across networks or even out just generally in the world that event's happening. So what I mean by that is, are they talking about it on the morning shows? Are you seeing highlights on GMA yet? Or any other morning, I say GMA because that's ABC and it's their product. But no, you're not. We had a perfect game in the Women's College World Series, and that's not breaking across news or networks. So when you start to see that and it becomes commonplace, and then people tune in and go, wow, these women are amazing. Now the ball starts rolling at the rate it should be.
Yeah, and you've seen the crazy WNBA numbers this year, and last year was a big jump too. So I think a lot of that, the numbers are shifting. Now you need some of those big networks and money behind it, obviously, to shift some of those things too. I had a question from the audience. They said, I love this concept and opportunity to provide awareness and value for female athletes. But he asked, what are potential plans for the identification and possible development of youth or soon to be graduating college athletes to be the next source of talent?
So what you've seen so far this year in the last month or maybe a hair more is 2 drafts. So the softball led with the college draft. That was first ever. And then 2 days ago, lacrosse did their college draft. So I think that we're trying very hard to make sure that we are adequately identifying the talent, the younger talent. I think that you will see, once we get a thoughtful, thorough plan together, I think you'll see some saturation into the youth markets that's going to also be unique and not just your sort of rubber stamp, let's throw out a clinic here. I think you'll see some more of that, but certainly I think the college drafts are telling you that we're interested in those players and we want to make sure that their careers continue.
So you don't have any of those plans specifically implemented? That's stuff you guys are talking about doing behind the scenes from the
we do. We do have a futures program with lacrosse that's running alongside the Lacrosse League, which is a series of competitions and camps and clinics that sort of culminate with our season in July in Maryland. But just completely across sports and a general plan, no, we don't yet. We are talking about it and just trying to make sure we do it right.
Sure. Another question. What are you doing in event for fan engagement or experience that's going to be different when you open up your first in-person season?
Those are ongoing. I've seen a lot. I think we're still, for Maryland, it's sort of a partial open. Okay. And not a complete open, but I think that is.
Will that potentially shift by the time, because it's July? I don't have the date in front of me. July 24th or something. It's late July, right?
Yeah.
We got a couple weeks.
Yes, I think that I actually am not in those day-to-day conversations, but I know that everybody's keeping an eye on it. And as the situations evolve, I think that we're trying to make sure we're current and that we are meeting the demands of fans and engaging them properly. But I think that one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we do is be thoughtful in the stadiums and be friendly to all different kinds of fans. So, I'll give you an example. One of the items that comes out of research is that sometimes it's difficult for moms with younger children to be able to go to a stadium event and have their needs met. So we're trying to make sure we think through that and make sure that there are basic things like shade and comfort and changing stations and things that the little things that you might not think about on a day-to-day basis. And then just what's going to be fun, what's going to engage fans in maybe in timeouts or halftime changes or those types of things. So there's an amazing group of people that work on that every day, and I'm confident that it'll be a unique experience as well as a really fun experience.
Sure. What are some opportunities you see for growth over the next couple years? I know you mentioned another sport, but what are some other opportunities you see?
Yeah, I think the sports, and then I think just us figuring out, listen, our competitive season is 5 weeks long. So, and that's by design. That was to kind of compact a season of competition and make sure that you don't have those sort of almost deadbeat games, going through the motion games in there that don't matter. We make sure that, every at bat, every time you pass a ball in volleyball or lacrosse matters. So I think that trying to make sure that you are meeting the demands of fans. When you have a 5-week season and it's intense and fun and you get into it, I think you're really sad to see it end. So I think that what we have to see is what's our coverage. As we add sports, you're going to see it go from one to the other. I'll tell you this. So I've been very, entrenched in softball my whole life. So I was in Dallas with volleyball and not sure, really what to expect. Looking at it from a broadcast and streaming standpoint and trying to make sure we covered it adequately, but not sure what to expect. And also not sure that we were going to get people to cross platforms. Is a softball fan that comes to Athletes Unlimited to see great softball, are they ever going to care about volleyball? And that question was answered for me. I'm a volleyball fan now. I thought it was spectacular. I thought the athleticism and the competition was spectacular. So I think those are things that we're going to see too. So what is our coverage going to be? That's a challenge for us. What's our coverage going to be? Is it going to be multi-sport throughout the year? Are we going to expand individual sports that maybe make a good call for that? Are we going to do that throughout the season? So it's a very young league, not yet a year old in terms of the competition since we rolled out softball last August. And so a lot to be decided, I think.
Would you do multiple seasons in a year? Would you do stuff like like Euro soccer? And I know WNBA is implementing a championship cup, which maybe you don't need in a 5-week season, but like unique in-game or in-season type concepts like that.
I think that all of that is on the table. I think we look at that. I think we understand those types of differences versus our structure. And so I think that we will do, I think we'll listen to fans. I think that we'll listen to players. And I think that we'll try to make sure that we grow these platforms so that these women can be true professionals and make their living here and try to, I think, play out their careers as they should. Get to the ages they should as professional players before retiring, and not just retire because they have to go to a real job or, something like that we've historically, sadly, experienced.
I feel like that's such an advantage where you can be creative and do some things because you're not stuck in what you've done for the last 20 years or 50 or 100 years in some leagues. You can be like, all right, there's an idea. What do we think? Yes.
And
yes?
listen,
all right, cool.
And listen, you should be in on some of our calls. That is it.
I'd love to. If you like, send me okay. I'll be in.
But from the top down, that is the message. At no point is someone standing at the top banging the desk and saying we're going in this direction. It is, and that's why, then you get the strength of the team. Then when these amazing people come in with great ideas and great experiences, you get to gather all of that, all of those assets in your decision making. So there's no question that's a strength of the organization overall.
Sure. This is the last question. I'll get you out of here on this one. Are there any new technologies, platforms, implementation, ways you can improve the on the field, off the field product, the broadcast product through technologies that you guys are looking into?
Yeah. So I think you see us try that every season. So we have about 5 or 6 options that we're still looking at for lacrosse. Everything from the tricked up cameras or camera locations, to being able to put technology on players and share that. So I think we're always trying to provide something unique to the fans throughout the season. I think one of the things, I'll give you an example of one that didn't end up being super popular, but one of the things that people argue or debate a lot in volleyball, especially if you talk to real volleyball fans, people that have been in a long time, is what if we shot volleyball from the end zone? What if our camera 1 was the end zone camera? And so we did one of our digital games. That's what we did. We had a cable cam in one end zone. We had a jib in the other. Those are both, great expanded angles from a camera. And we shot it exclusively and streamed that from the end zone camera. And I would tell you, the jury says that is not the popular view. So, the tough thing in volleyball is when they go to the net and have that sort of war there at the net of a kill and a block, you can't tell from the end zone camera what side of the net it falls on. So that was the thing for me. But listen, we gave it a try, and we let people have their opinions, and we most of all let people see what does it look like from here. We'll give this a go. So I think with our mindset, we're going to win some and we're going to lose some. But I'm proud of our ability to be able to be flexible, like you said. And I think a lot of times just with the technology you're going to see on players and the various angles, and not only that, but I think we tell, from a broadcast standpoint, we make sure that our production team understands that we want to deliver a high level here. And, we do not want you to sit here for 2 hours and get in the car and go home. We want you to help us create a unique, engaging product and work it. And that's why I think you saw in volleyball, our cable cam, you saw that angle a lot. And it was a fun angle. It was sometimes you got to see right down on top of the server. And it was just it was a unique aspect, but our director worked hard enough to pull that camera to give you that angle a lot, instead of just putting it off to the side and showing it to you going to break every once in a while. So I think that everybody from our CTO to our production team is always thinking about the technology and how to engage some new and different things.
Sure. From when you guys did that, you just had, there was no, I could go watch on another channel or on a Twitter feed or Facebook to get the opposite angle or the side angle, I guess. You didn't do anything like that?
Yeah, no. So we were still cutting the show. So you did see different camera angles. So I think we had 13 cameras on that show. So you got to, there were times where you saw close-ups and things like that, but your primary game camera 1, was coming from the end zone.
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, Cheri, I appreciate the time. I don't know anything about lacrosse except I've watched a couple games, but I'm excited to watch next month. I'll tune in and excited about what you guys are building. And I appreciate your time today.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on here.